Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. Hope you're having an awesome day. I'm excited to be here with my friend, Nancy Ruffner, who is amazing. So, Nancy, why don't you introduce what it is exactly that you do? Because I think it's such a cool thing.
Well, I'm Nancy Ruffner, and I'm a board-certified patient advocate. I do own a patient advocacy agency, but more recently, I have been very involved in small business coaching people that are in healthcare, that are professionals in my industry.
Now, I remember because I used to own a home care agency for 3 years, and it is a doozy of a business, or it can be. Getting clients.
You're exactly right. And it's a tender time. Clients are usually very stressed out because things are happening fast that they don't understand, and they need not only help, but they need fast education.
Mm-hmm. And, so a lot of the patients that you work with are dealing with end-of-life care. Somebody had a fall, somebody broke a hip, cancer.
Yep, new diagnoses.
Batshit crazy stuff. So, there's a whole group of people like you, they're patient advocates, and they come into the situation where they're dealing with family members who are in crisis. Mm-hmm. And then what are the problems that these practitioners who are going in to try to help the families kind of hit?
I think the most frustrating thing is that the two parties so often can't find each other. I can't tell you how many times that folks have said, if only I'd known about you when. My industry is rather new. Patient advocacy only came into being around 2009, and we were brought to board certification in 2018. And so we're growing, we're emerging. The need is there, and the people are so overjoyed to find out about us. But I think the biggest frustration is that the client, the consumer, the end users are stuck and stymied. And at the same time, the practitioners are as well. How do I connect with these people? How do I find them?
Mm-hmm. And, I'm sure that COVID has definitely been like throwing a hand grenade in the water.
Let's just say we're shining a light on problems that were already there. Mm-hmm. We've spent a great deal of time tacking and finding new ways to pivot, to use a now overused word. But we've had to change our service delivery methods and quickly find out how our work sites, like skilled nursing facilities and ERs and hospitals and attorneys' offices, they've all had to change their processes. So we have to be aware of theirs in order to educate and prep our clients on what to expect. We're having to go the extra mile to connect the dots, to educate, to build safety. This is how it works these days, and to help shepherd people through.
Right. And then on the other side, what's holding practitioners back from succeeding here?
Well, there's a lot going on. The folks that I normally work with are largely RNs and social workers, OTs, and other, let's just say sole practitioners or very small business owners. And they have hung out a shingle, excellent work skills and terrific professional skills, but they've never had to acquire a client before. They've never had to run a small business. I myself am a social worker undergrad, and my master's work was in counselor education, and nowhere in my curriculum did they discuss social media or accounting. That was not part of our formal training. We all have terrific skills. We can help people, but it's the service delivery, the marketing, the messaging, and the visibility that so often hangs people up.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm going to guess that they probably didn't spend like a lot of hours covering SEO.
None.
What?
Yeah. Well, for some of us, internet wasn't around when we first started on our professional skills. So I think that it's a combination of learning learning new skills, being able to articulate what our services are in an effective way. Imagine if you have worked in big healthcare or system or medical group all your life, and your clients have already always been provided for you. Next client, next bed, next room. That was always part of our employment. And here we are now with fervently hanging out our shingle, knowing that we can help somebody, and we have to acquire a new client. That's a new skill for us.
Right. And yeah, I mean, so I think that a lot of the advice too that gets given is tough to follow as well. Oh, just go post all this stuff on social media. Do what?
True. And I often encounter folks that don't use social media personally. And so it is indeed their first foray, or sometimes it's shifting the gears. I know what I'm posting and what I'm sending out there to the world, but now the mission is to get in the client's head and to understand their need and to articulate your services in such a way that you come alongside them. So that they know that you know, and that you can help them. Some of the other things that we deal with a lot of times are tricky conversations. Now, we're pretty good at tricky conversations because we're covering things like end of life and that kind of thing, decisions about designating your financial or healthcare power of attorney. But there's another kind of tricky conversation, and that's one about money. We've never had to ask for a sale, and people have bring a lot of well, let's call it what it is. It's fear in talking about money. They haven't resolved their own feelings about money, and they're having to quote a rate or a price or a project now, and that's new to them too. And so if we're not sure and confident about how we're putting that out to people, if we're not sure of our own value deep down inside, that we can help that client and move that needle, if we can't say it with confidence, there's a lot of fear there.
Yeah. Well, and you were talking about, when we were chatting offline about, somebody that you knew who was charging half of the normal going rate and then only charging for a percentage of their hours on top of that.
Yes, there's a lot of unusual self-talk that goes on among the people that come to me for coaching. Well, I couldn't possibly charge that because I'm new. But you have 15 years in the ICU. Come on. And so they're having trouble with that. And then also, I think we tend to fall into the do-gooder category. We do more than is asked of us. We do more than we're willing to charge for. We keep working when we say we've stopped working on a task. And I call it the just one more thing syndrome. I know I fall into it too. Oh, I can just one more thing. I can, and we take care of it. But we're selling ourselves short, and we're selling our industry short.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, and then the problem with that is when you're not charging what you need to charge. Here's the thing: you can't serve your clients because you can't feed yourself.
That's right.
Can't keep a roof over your head.
We have to keep the doors open for the many. We do, because there are people that need us. And so it's important. A large part of my work is making sure that people have a proper foundation and they are placing their business and operations priorities where they need to be in order to sustain and scale.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, no. And I mean, I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just, and having owned a home care agency and worked with seniors, I saw it a lot with, my competition, with not charging, with, not tracking hours well, not doing certain things. It's hard to ask for that sale sometimes. And it's doubly hard also because a lot of times this is a new industry. People haven't ever worked with a patient advocate. So they're like, well, wait, what do you mean you're charging me $150 an hour or $135 an hour or whatever? And, you know, and then they start to try to negotiate you down, and you're in a situation where you've never had to negotiate for pay ever.
Yeah, I don't recommend getting into that. You know, if it is an issue, it does present because people are used to working with professionals that might be covered by their insurance. So all they've seen is what their monthly insurance costs and then maybe a copay. We're private pay, and that bears discussion with every client. We are private pay because we are beholden to, we work for the patient and their family, not for insurance, not for hospitals, no contracts signed with, say, senior housing communities to get a percentage of the first month's rent as a kickback. We don't do that. We work only for our clients. You know, it's called the allegiance factor. Our allegiance must be with that client. If I'm taking insurance reimbursement, that squelches my advocacy voice. I would always be questioning how far could I go and still get a paycheck from whatever insurance company.
Yeah, insert insurance company right here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the other thing too is that I saw this with my own parents. The discussion was, oh, well, if it's not covered by insurance, then I must not need it.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And it's funny how folks will say that to themselves at the same time, knowing full well the gaping holes in our insurance, especially in the United States. Gosh, are we compared to other countries, and it's not very favorable. You know, that's the whole reason that I started my company, is because I saw the gaps in healthcare, dealing with my parents as they aged and passed. It was evident. And that's a big part of my story, for my sister and I to be two of the best prepared daughters on the planet to help our folks. And you know, we saw the gaps, we saw the cracks. We spent a lot of time patching things up, and it was a fast patch because you needed to look down the road too at the same time. And that's a lot of what a patient advocate will do for you. They understand and can mitigate. They see the cracks that you might fall down. They got eyes down the road as well. They're looking ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, the funny thing is though, even though it's out of pocket, you know, what I found is that a good patient advocate, a good care manager, you know, a good nurse, social worker working with you in this field makes every bit of difference. But the thing is that there's not nearly enough of them.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah. And there's not enough folks, in my estimation, that have hung out their own shingle, that are saying, no more big system for me. I remember that, just the delight. I was training somebody new, and we were at a work site, and she was ready to go from the patient's room down to the desk. And she said, "Can I say this?" And I said, "Yes, you can." She was delighted. She got her voice then and there. She knew what she wanted to say. She could use it to help her client, and she was no longer squelched. And it was just fascinating, wonderful to see.
Isn't that amazing when you can finally go toe to toe with the system and say, no, this is really what needs to happen?
Absolutely.
And having somebody who's experienced, you know, and I think that's part of why I'm so excited about this workshop that you're doing. I got to say, it's just women after my own heart.
It's an interesting workshop in that we talk about the things that can hold a new or young in business practitioner back. And a lot of it is self-work and confidence work and money and mindset block, limiting beliefs that are keeping us from heading forward. And as I talk and teach along this subject line, the chat fills up with comments like, "That's me too, you said it." And it's interesting because folks see themselves a lot, and as we begin to talk about some of the things that hold people back, a real good one, easy one to use, is that they're looking for a sign. Well, it's a pandemic, I couldn't possibly start, or I'm not trying real hard now because it's a pandemic, or my phone's not ringing because it's a pandemic. No, the need never went away. The need,
it's just exacerbated now.
Your patients are there and they need you more than ever, and they need somebody that'll shoot them straight and has the latest information that can paint an accurate picture of how is this going to go. They need it more than ever, but folks will hang back. They'll look for a sign. They'll wait for something. They're watching other people, watching other practitioners to see how or what they do. And they're listening to, they're being led around by their emotions, being led around by the wind, rather than stepping into the person that they need to become.
Well, and I think that they're being led by fear. I think there's a huge amount of fear there. And yet, right now with COVID, I mean, it's the work that you're doing, the work that you're teaching people how to get into this business to do is more important than ever, because we haven't been able to travel. There's limits on how many people you can have in the hospital at a time. Doctors are probably even more non-communicative than usual. Choices are being shut off because of the pandemic.
Yes.
Y'all, if you're a practitioner, people need you more than ever. Now is the time.
Yeah, I totally agree. Not a week goes by that I'm not saying in my location, there needs to be 28 more of me doing what I'm doing. And why aren't there? And I'm trying as hard as I can to be a beacon and a shepherd into small business, small healthcare business, because it's a great market, and it's a proven market. You may encounter some stumbling blocks, maybe social media, maybe you need help there along the way. Maybe you need help with some getting past a limiting belief. It can all be done. Everything that I teach, Haley, is something that I've gone through. I teach to my former self. I've gone through every one of these. I've had doubts, negative self-talk. I've looked for signs. I've waited for permission. I've done all of that. And this talk does a good job of bringing that to light and providing some workarounds. There are what I call U-turns, and there's ways to overcome all of this. We can, and peppering it too with stories of people that we know, famous people, history, stories of how they've overcome.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, Oprah was told she was never going to succeed.
Yeah. A lot of people have gotten that message from parents or teachers, and for whatever reason, they're hanging on to some of it, and they can correct it. They just need to slow down enough to recognize their strength and capitalize on that. And again, the key phrase is stepping into who you need to become.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Thank you. This has been awesome. Y'all register for the workshop. It's amazing. Y'all are going to see it all over my work, all over my profile here, all over Women's Entrepreneur Network. So you might as well just give up and register now. Cool. Thank you.
My pleasure. I look forward to being with everybody.
Yeah, me too. This is an awesome thing. So I hope we can get the word out. Thanks, guys. Peace out. What?